Okay, hello everybody, and this is Quinton coming at you live with some breaking news. Even though the DA has shed its support from the Conservative side, this is a good thing. It's actually going to grow the party because now that it doesn't have to appease the right, it can go back to being the centrist party it always was.
Awesome. And with that, welcome to episode 20 of the No Script Show with myself,
None of that
Wogan.
was sarcasm, guys.
None of it was sarcasm.
Not at all.
I'm Wogan. I'm joined by my co-host Odin and our guest Quinton. It's great to have you here.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks for inviting me. I've been looking so forward to chatting to you.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. Have you heard any of our episodes? You might want to retract
Pretty
that
much all of
statement.
them, man. Pretty much all of them.
Dude, so just before the stream, we were commenting on your shirt. I would like you to just briefly describe the shirt you're wearing to our audience.
Okay, so my shirt is, it has Joseph Stalin on it, putting up the devil horns, and it says Stalin behind, and it's emblazoned with a big red star. I'll post a picture of it maybe later on my Twitter. But yeah, I thought it was funny when I bought it, but it sort of triggered some people because I went to Berlin and I'm super into Second World War history. So I went to this bunker museum, which is really cool. But I forgot that I was wearing this shirt on the day. So I don't know if people could see the funny side, but I certainly did.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's a faux pas. It's like taking selfies at the Auschwitz Memorial. Remember that? There's like this
I
group
can
of...
one up that.
Go for
I
it.
can one up that. At the company I was working for, we were working on a a decision forest which is a AI method, for those of you not in the know, to help us make decisions on microloans. And it was using a decision engine named Shylock. Now, Shylock is the quote-unquote
Right.
evil Jew in William Shakespeare's play Othello. We had to do a presentation to these investors, and I kind of questioned the name of it from the start, but the dude in charge is like, well, I have a doctorate in AI, so shut up, I make the decisions. And in walks in 8 of the investors. Seven of those 8 are very Jewishly dressed with the little yarmulkes
Oy
and
vey.
everything.
Ooh.
I was like, ooh. Sitting there, and I was just like, man, I'm so glad I don't have your job right now.
Oh, did they get their
Insane.
pound of flesh?
Yes. Needless to say, we had to rename the engine, and the company apologized profusely to the investors.
Oh man, that's amazing.
You see, life is full of these beautiful moments like that. I'm so
But
glad.
I mean, like, that would be like going to a slavery museum and having like McBlackman on as named something. Like, come on, Negro Joe or something like tattooed on you. Like, come on, man.
I'm pretty sure Negro Joe is what you'd call like the fast food cart at the slavery museum or something like that.
And with that, Quinton, you now know why we are a fully alt-right.
Oh yeah, no. So I have to just I'm in shock. Obviously a big topic now is going to be the election results. I mean that's like the last couple of voting districts are coming in right now. As we're recording, and I have to give like a huge shout out to Henning Libbe. He's now my favorite DA youth leader because I made a dumb joke on Twitter. I'm like, the dream team for the DA. And then he responded to that with the party line of like, it was a good thing that we shared votes. And I'm just like, no, my guy. So I engaged him completely sincerely. And I'm like, these are the things that are wrong. And then like, that was fine. That was last night. And then as of this morning, the dog pile woke up and it was up to like 71 replies when I checked. He was getting ratioed to hell. So he dealt with it by blocking me. The guy who hadn't spoken to him since yesterday wasn't sending him anything. I'm blocked. So it's like, okay, you guys don't know how to argue, don't know how to think, and don't know how to use Twitter. This is like 3 for 3. You guys are amazing. No wonder you lost 600,000 votes.
I mean, what was it, Quinton? I think you'll agree with this that we can thank PVD for helping the DA shed those votes.
Which is a good thing, guys.
Yeah,
Remember, it's a good thing.
I mean, I try to warn her. A lot of people try to warn her, but yeah, instead of engaging and listening, she blocked us. So hey, what do you expect?
I'm also just like the part of this that I can't figure out. Okay, so it's like, it's a good thing we lost the votes because now it means that we don't have to pander to these people. Okay, sure. It doesn't make sense, but we'll go with that. So you want to be progressive, yes. Okay. Tell me why any progressive would vote for you versus like the EFF. Explain this to me. They're
Yeah.
the ones who are progressive. So tell me what distinguishes you from the EFF now, because that's the game you're trying to play. I don't know what the hell they're doing. But although the best part was when Helen Ziller responded to the thread and said that, you know, it's like, this is a dangerous line of fallacious thought, Henning. Like, she responded to the youth guy, and I've got that screenshotted. It's one of my favorite moments now. Tanya Ziller is now
Well,
back on
Tanya
Twitter.
Helen,
Yes.
she's back. She can now say what she's always thought.
Oof, it's gonna be lit.
And a lot of what we always knew she thought.
Oh yes.
Exactly. So I wonder who they were pandering to at the end of the day.
Because they lost the conservatives and apparently they also lost the progressives. Like, the totals are still coming. Like, the totals are pretty much done, I think, now. But the amount that they lost doesn't tally up to the Freedom Front Plus's gain. It doesn't tally up to the EFF's gains. So what? You know, where did these people go? Ah, it's gonna be amazing.
And where do they think they can go? I mean, where's the fertile ground? Like, if you were to really look at it, and this is the thing about the DA, they're really shit at strategy, but they're pretty good at governing. So okay, so let's say you've shed your conservative base. So what's left is the left. And where do you think the center is? It's the ANC, basically. So if your center is the ANC, how? How does shedding votes help you to become more centrist? I just can't get my head around that kind of logic.
The thing is, I can. And it's the thing that it was obvious to me when I opened up the Diaz manifesto, and page 2 is a full-size shot of Musi Maimane. And it's evident in the way that they're making decisions around messaging. The DA is starting to be gripped by, and you'll know this, the obsession with purity. It's starting to creep in.
Right.
So like that social justice warrior purity test.
Right, exactly. And it's like, I think the DA, the people that see this as a victory, I'm pretty sure they see it that way because the DA is now purer. It's been kind of put through the fire. The impurities have burnt off. We're now stronger as a party. Except you're not. In no measure are you stronger. But the belief is that you are. So I'm pretty sure it's something to do with that. Like this ideology is taking over.
So you're saying they genuinely believe that they're stronger, and that's how it's a victory to them, even though logically it's not.
Well, the thing is, no, I haven't seen anybody go, guys, we fucked up, we're going to reassess. Like, nothing like that yet. Maybe I've missed it, but the party line seems to be this was a good thing. Like, they just have to push the narrative that they didn't screw up. This was almost intentional. So,
okay.
And if you're positioning yourself as a party of integrity, in opposition to the ANC, which has none, but you cannot take feedback in that way, you double down, then basically you're doing exactly what the ANC does. Every time they're called to account for something, they go, well, guys, this is just the force of white monopoly capital behind the scene. Don't worry, we'll get there. And the DA is pretty much saying, well, we didn't fuck up. This was the force of white monopoly Afrikaners behind the scene, and they fucked up. It wasn't us. We're all good. And yeah, how do you position yourself out of that then?
You don't. I mean, I also see to that same dog pile, Tony Leon responded, and it's like, you don't blame the voters for leaving. That's how you make sure you never see them again. It's like, yes.
Yes.
So
yeah,
we are all in awe as to how this happened. I am quite amazed.
I'm not in awe. I'm angry actually at a certain subset of voters, and the subset of voters I'm angry at are the black diamonds. You know, because I know, you know, I'm friends with people. You know, I went to private schools in Joburg. I'm friends with people, and I know a lot of them voted ANC still, knowing full well how bad it is for the country as a whole. But because of the connections they have, they're like, well, the country be damned. I need to keep voting for ANC because it benefits me. That's the only thing I'm upset about. That's it.
Yeah, I actually know people like that as well. It's like they like, yeah, no, the ANC screwed up, but as long as I vote ANC, I'm in the club and I'm getting these connections. So yeah, it's pretty much that. Plus, I don't know what they're doing in the rural areas, but it continues to work. So just
In the rural areas, I think a lot of the vote, and this is me speculating psychologically, based off of my grandmother type thing, is that a lot of those voters still see the ANC as this grand liberating force, and they brought this forth and that forth. And what they fail to see is that any vestiges or any individuals who were part of that liberating force, part of that, principled sort of O.R. Tambo and Nelson Mandela sort of class of ANC they're dead and gone. The ANC
Yeah.
that you see now has about as much in common with the ANC of old as the movie World War Z had with the book. Like, it's just a name. Else is just.
dude, I think if you want a more contemporary reference, it would definitely be Game of Thrones because apparently the writing in the last season has just gone all the way downhill. I wouldn't know.
You shut your mouth. Clegane Ball is still on, and it's gonna be amazing.
I don't. I will claim a complete honest ignorance. I haven't seen Game of Thrones since the episodes where the dragons hatched, and that was like a long time ago. So,
Uh,
so I'm out
Well,
of
I'd
this.
say you're missing out.
yeah.
Maybe.
I just want to watch Clegane Ball. That's how I'm actually able to move past people complaining about the writing, because to me, the thing that I still want is still on. So, from my perspective, the series is still good.
Yeah, fair enough. It's exactly the same sort of argument where like the ANC can still save us. It's like the soul of it's dead and gone, but the corpse is lumbering forward, so keep believing it.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to intersect Game of Thrones and politics all in one go.
Well, yeah. We should
Well,
Game
you-
of Thrones or politics.
Exactly.
It would make things a lot simpler. Just kill people you don't like, and then
Well, that's what the ANC
Whoa,
is doing in KZN.
hold on there, Daniel Friedman.
Yeah.
oh shit! Are we going to talk about the unfunny comedian,
Sure.
the journalist with no credentials,
Please
the man with no
highlight
name?
Your deep Pride Man experiences.
I actually
So
don't have
what,
that
King?
many. I don't have any. Like I can't honestly say that. Do you,
Yeah,
Quentin?
me neither.
No
Do I
direct-
have any?
Quentin, do you have any deep Friedman experiences on Twitter? Like, did he say a dumb thing?
Yes, I actually do. We
Oh.
did have a little bit of an exchange once about the old flag, okay, so that was something that I feel very pissed off that in the same week I had to defend people who wanted the old flag. I had to defend Steve Hofmeyr, and I had to defend the BLF slogan "Land or Death" in the same week.
Oh my
And
god.
that's the problem with standing up for free speech, is that I don't like anything that any of those people stand for or have to say, but I defend their right to say it. And me and Friedman went around a little bit about the old flag, and I was like, dude, AfriForum are tacked onto the case as respondents. It's about free speech. If you feel like you have the right to say or to make a video about the white genocide and all that kind of thing, which I believe he does have the right to do that, then you also have to believe that people should have the right to wave the flag. I mean, there's a logical consistency in that, but yeah, he wasn't having it. So,
And this is actually the thing. It's like, just kind of touching back on what the DA's defense of this is. The other thing they keep saying is that we've been stronger on our principles than ever, which is utter bullshit. But the people that support, they've said that. It's another Henning Libber classic. You can go find it. I can't. I'm blocked, but you can. So the people that I've seen defending the DA they definitely choose sides. They're extremely partisan. So they'll defend the DA's right to do things, but not grant their opposition the same rights. And so, Quentin, just like you said now, like, you're in a principled position when you defend people you do not agree with. And it's like, if you can't honestly say that you're doing that, then you are not principled by definition. So the DA is not. Yeah. They are not. The DA did fuck all to stand up for Helen Zille's right to free speech on the Singapore tweet, but keep backing off from PVD when she goes off on social media. And it's like, you want to tell me they're principled? Come on. That was one of the many things I just like, no, guys.
I appeared in that AfriForum video, by the way.
30 seconds of fame.
Guest starred in it. And I know this is anecdotal evidence, but, mom watched that video. My mom, who again literally lived through apartheid. My mom, who literally had her siblings go into exile, who literally had family members murdered by apartheid secret police. Just for context, guys. And she watched me in the video, and she only had one comment on that. And I mean, for those who didn't watch it, I basically took the same position as Quentin, as I don't like it, but free speech, whatever, man. Knock yourself out. Goose step in your fucking basement if you want to. My mom watches it and she's like, I'm very proud of you that you've grown to be a principled person, and I understand your argument. And that to me is all the praise I need on that. All the like
Right
the rest,
on, man.
Yeah.
Oh man. So yeah, it's.
Did you guys see?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go.
Did you guys see PVD's appearance on the Coconut Kells YouTube pre-election stream? Because if you haven't, I think you should go watch it just to see how really up her own ass she is. She literally cannot take a joke. I mean, this Coconut Kells is wonderful satire. I actually think it's hilarious in its hyperbole. It's such fantastic satire. And PVD is there being satirized, but somehow doesn't understand that this is not the time to be serious about yourself. It's the time where you can have a little bit of a laugh at your own expense, and it's that kind of she finds it impossible to not take this brash sort of defensive stance all the time, even if it's a satirical video. I mean, come on.
You see,
that is, I wonder about the psychology of that level of hubris. Like, it's just
and that's her thing. Like, she doesn't have a sense of humor. Like at this point, she just doesn't. She doesn't have the ability to introspect or to step outside herself. And these, like, look, generally, I don't like, calling out people's personality flaws or trying to diagnose them. I'm not that kind of person.
Except me.
Except that you keep providing evidence.
Yeah.
You keep providing evidence.
No, exactly.
But it's like, I try not to do that, but it's because, again, I've watched her and it's just, she has, there was a thread, okay? What it all boils down to was a thread where she, quote unquote, addressed the matter of the purple cows. Now, I have it saved in Google Docs. It's a full page. It was like 15 tweets. Where she says she's going to address this now, and she's like about to drop this fire thread, and like all her supporters are cheering her on, and she goes on for 15 tweets and says nothing about the ZSCP, fucking nothing. It's like a whole ramble about how great she is, how oppressed she is, how hard she's fighting. They wanted me to sit down and shut up, but I'm a black woman, I won't do that. And I'm reading this and I'm going, cool flex. Where's the purple cow? I'm waiting to see what you have to say. Nothing. Just
weird
absolutely
flex,
nothing.
but okay.
It's not even a weird flex. It's like I get where you're coming from. But also, do you get where you're coming from? I'm not sure you understand where you're positioning here. The positionality, as the progressives would call it. Do you understand? You're an MP in Parliament, right? You're literally the least oppressed group imaginable in South African politics. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
I just have one thing to say about her constant recourse to being a smart, strong black woman, and that is Gwen Ngwenya.
Shit.
I went there. So, yeah.
Oof. Okay, so but now Gwen is like no longer the policy head, and I don't even know if she's on the slate to be an MP. I haven't checked. I'm assuming she is.
Yeah. Gwen Ngwenya is everything that PVD claims she is.
Exactly.
Except that Gwen doesn't have to drop these long Twitter threads to argue her position. She just states it because she knows what she's talking about.
Well, she doesn't have to tell people that she's a strong, smart black woman because you can see it. It's obvious.
Yes.
Go back to Game of Thrones. I think it was in Game of Thrones where the king who has to remind you that he's a king is no king.
Yep.
Precisely.
I mean, like, when I saw her resignation letter, because that whole thing leaked when she quit as policy head, I read that and I went, this is a principled person who knows what they're doing and they're frustrated at the system. She does not have to defend the assertion that she's a capable, individual. I can see it. Damn, that's actually a good thought. Do you reckon there might be some like jealousy / rivalry going on between these two characters? South African politics is a meme. The whole thing is a meme.
So is US politics, though.
But ours is spicier. Like, we had Claudia Motsoeneng, who was going to be the next president of South
Okay,
Africa.
well, yeah.
Let's talk about Cloudy for a second, Mr. 90%. I want to get into this.
No, I actually want him to be back on top of the SABC, and I will pay TV licenses, because if he is, I want to watch all their meetings, like his hype. Come on, guys,
Dude,
I will pay money for that.
we need someone to get this man a reality show where all he does is walk around and tell people how great he is. I would pay to see that.
Man, his YouTube channel would be,
Yes!
yeah, I mean,
Dude,
Cloud Division.
Hype.
Did you see yesterday? He was like, "It's not the end of the world; it's the beginning of the world." Did you guys see that one?
Yes.
It was just beautiful, man.
that man is a standalone walking meme generator. He is a
is,
godsend.
man.
We should
Really
appreciate him. Just don't put him in charge of anything important, but do appreciate his character.
Well, between him and the president of the US, like, who's more of a hype meme machine?
Dude, Cloudy's energy would beat Trump's memes like any day of the week. Put them in a room together.
You think so?
Yes. Because
Trump retweets his own tweets. He retweets his personal tweets from his account using the President of the United States Twitter account. And that's amazing.
And it's like
amazing.
It's a cool flex, but you know, Cloudy can probably bring big people back from the dead. So I don't know. So just with all the voting districts in, there's like literally 2 districts left to report. As I say this, ACM got 4,839 votes. That's quite a lot for somebody who just launched on a smartphone and then had a couple of cars branded. That was the other thing he did. But guys, he's our incoming president. He's going to rule South Africa, guys.
I thought that was Juju.
Juju's a lot closer, dude. So the EFF support jumped from 6.3% in 2014 to 10.7% this year. In absolute terms, they got another 600,000 votes since the last election. That's proper growth.
Yeah.
Shit, they're a 10% party now. They were aiming for 12 and they got 10.7. That's like it's not bad, but also I'm terrified. But also it's technically not bad.
Yeah.
In terms of vote growth.
I'm not too sad that the Freedom Front Plus grew in numbers, actually.
Oh, staggering. They gained the most. They were 0.9 in 2014. They're 2.3 right now. They actually got 410,000 votes, up from 165,000 last time. So that's huge growth.
Huge. I'm totally okay with that, because a lot of their principles, we need more of that in Parliament. Like, you know, bro, I don't always agree with some of the identitarian stuff some of their people push, the whole identitarian blood and soil. Well, they don't do that, but, you know, there's a bit of that identitarianism at play there.
Yeah,
but
sure.
aside from that, yeah, I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah, no, there was a debate on the North-South podcast, which I would actually, if anyone goes back to the North-South channel and finds the debate that was between COPE, the DA, ZSCP, so it was COPE, ZSCP, and Freedom Front Plus. ADEC didn't show up, which was quite sad. I would advise anyone to skip the first 35 minutes of that video, because everyone's just kind of stating their party positions, and then when the floor got opened, ask each other questions. Then it got interesting. Unfortunately, Jared, the good sport from COPE, demonstrated that he doesn't understand how the economy works, which I thought was quite entertaining. But then everyone else got into this thing about identity and group rights versus individual rights. And that's really the main kind of sticking point for the VF, is that they still go for group rights and they still want to kind of push this. But it's like, being a pragmatist, the Afrikaner group in South Africa is relatively quite small. It's not as if that's suddenly going to translate into the whole country being that way. So I'm kind of okay with it. If the ANC does this, and it is dangerous, and we know it, and that's the real problem. So the VF Plus can do it. It won't cause any real damage, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to go to the lager mentality thing, but on one level, I can understand it. I mean, everyone is willing to throw the Afrikaner under the bus for cheap political points. And what do you do when you're feeling under siege is you look around and go, fuck, who can stand next to me? And yeah, I guess there is an element of that for sure. I mean, the rise of the VF Plus, such that it is, in my opinion, directly related to the throwing the Afrikaner under the bus national pastime that we've been having for quite some time. But I had a colleague yesterday, because I work with some British guys and Australians, and one of them was reading a BBC 5 things we learned from the SA election. And he was like, yeah, it's kind of weird because you guys also have the rise of the far right as we see in the rest of the world and all of that kind of thing. I was like, hang on, man, let me put this into perspective with you. And I went through the election map, and I was like, okay, let me show you which parties are on the right. And I could name maybe 3 or 4. And I was like, do you see their percentages? And then look at the rest. I'll show you which parties are on the very far left and then the center left. And basically everyone who's socialist or worse, communist, is about 70% of all the votes. Center left, if you want to call the DA center left, fine. That's what, 20? And then probably about 5 is center right to far right, which I don't know that the VF are necessarily far right. The identitarian stuff for sure, but I don't believe all of them or everyone who voted for the VF plus has that mentality necessarily.
And
so in perspective, it's not a rise of the far right kind of thing, even though it's been reported as such.
Is that how it's been reported in Europe? That's interesting to me.
Well, it was a BBC article, yeah.
But also the BBC Technology Division once published a guy who wrote these brilliant money-saving hacks which boil down to making your own sandwich at work. And from that point forward, I can't take them seriously. That's a real thing, guys. This guy figured out a hack that if you just buy bread and ingredients, you can make your own sandwich and you don't have to stand in the queue at Pret. And I was like, okay, good job. So
good job, Europe.
Good job. But there is this thing, just quickly, on the rise of the right. It's like people are seeing a bunch of things that look like it in different countries, and they kind of weave it together like, oh my God, global values are under assault. But if you look at them, every single one is like different. Especially in South Africa, where it's like the rise of the right is people going, hold on, where's the center? That's where I thought we were.
Exactly.
Let's go back to, classical liberal values and the Constitution. Constitution is that's not hard right, but that's what most of the people are calling it. So it's not a surprise.
Well, what's the drive of the rise of the right, as it were, in Europe? I mean, I'm just wondering with the mentality behind the rise of the right in Europe. Maybe Quentin can comment on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with immigration, if I'm honest with you. Yeah, that's it. And okay, I'm a bit hesitant to use the term cultural Marxism because I know it has other undertones that I wasn't always aware of. But certainly, I guess, with sort of the intersectionality and the feminism and this critical theory-based discourse of society, a lot of people are kind of pushing back against that because in Europe, at least, they're worried about the Islamification due to mass migration.
Yeah.
But critical theory doesn't, in my opinion, give you a focus on secularity, which is what you would need to protect a country from becoming a theocracy. It kind of goes to the intersectional victim hierarchy pretty quickly. So I guess the rise of the far right is attributable to the immigration and the fact that you are shutting down a conversation that can be critical of issues that are real, that are happening. But you're only allowed to look at it from the intersectional points of view. That's the orthodoxy. If you deviate from the orthodoxy, they shut you down. And I guess when you can't have a conversation, things go underground. And that's, to me, the rise of the far right in a nutshell in Europe. Although, I mean, man, I don't feel it really. I understand that the Netherlands has a Muslim population, and you guys can see my beard. I get confused for a Muslim guy, for a Turkish guy all the time. They don't have any poras over here.
That's so messed up.
But like, for instance, today I was buying a crate of beer, and some woman looked at me like really, really weird, walking on the side of the road. And I was like, why is this woman looking at me? And I realized, oh, she's wearing a hijab. She's saying, why is my brother buying a crate of beer? That kind of thing, and that kind of stuff it abounds here. But honestly, man, people are super chilled. I feel no day-to-day tensions or anything like that. It's when it comes down to the political conversations about, okay, so what are our values? Then they can't have them on a like we're having them now, without worrying about offending people. They sort of say, well, you can't say that. If you do, you're far right. Then you go, oh, but it's immigration is a thing. People are coming in, and we don't really know how to integrate everyone and how to get everyone working and how to grow the tax base instead of growing the welfare state. These are very important conversations, and they're not willing to have them, in my opinion. Sorry, that was a long ass rant.
No, we love that kind of stuff. And that's what we're here for.
Exactly, and like that's the whole thing. Because the way it's reported by these assholes on Twitter, swear to God, it's reported as if Europe is constantly on fire, and it's like there's what was the one thing that's like there's no-go zones. It's like there's no-go zones where the Muslims are taken over, and it's like no, there isn't.
What is it? What's her name? Caitlin Bennett. That girl in this. No, not Caitlin Bennett. Fucking Katie Hopkins.
Oh yes,
Katie Hopkins.
Fuck yeah. And she's like a less attractive British Ann Coulter. Like Ann Coulter is cringy.
Yeah, less attractive.
This is what Odin does with everything. It always comes down to like women somehow. I think we wanted to analyze that, but
we have to demonetize the stream at some point. So I'm just gonna demonetize it by saying, Ann Coulter, cringy as all hell at times, even though technically I'm also conservative, but man, she can get it. Low key, she can get it.
But Katie Hopkins, not so much.
No.
I would agree. Well, let me tell you, man, I literally live in The Hague, and The Hague, there was this, a while ago, a jihadi group here called the Hofstad group. Hofstad is the capital city. Mm-hmm. And they were from a neighborhood which is about 15 minutes from where I stay by bicycle. And this neighborhood has this big market, which is like a kind of a fruit and veg flea market type of vibe. And me and the missus go there all the time. And when we arrived here, we were always going there, and it was super diverse, lots of people from everywhere else, Dutch people, Turkish people, Moroccan people. And I wasn't aware that this neighborhood is in the Islamic ghetto, so-called, because coming from Johannesburg, everything looks really nice. Like there's no potholes, the street lights are all working, everyone's pretty chilled. I mean, I was like, yeah, okay, I see more people selling olives and hummus and sun-dried tomatoes than cheese. But I was like, yeah, give me some of those olives.
Exactly.
And that's my experience of an Islamic ghetto.
Quentin, you have been so thoroughly brutalized by South African urban life that you cannot tell the difference between the good and the bad parts of The Hague. That is rough, man. I am so sorry to hear that. But I mean, you see, but that's the thing. I had the same conversation. So
it's all relative, man.
It is. It's like one of my customers. They have their head of marketing is a Lithuanian woman who, a couple of years ago, just decided she was going to live in South Africa and then did it. I'm like, wow, okay. And then she kind of, when she got to grips with what South Africa was, she started recognizing first that South Africans put up with a lot, and second, just how fragile Lithuanians are, because things that like we take kind of for granted are like showstoppers to some of these people. It's like, yeah, sure, sometimes there's a hole in the road. Okay, sometimes the power goes out for like an hour because the substation blew up. You can't really do anything about it. But these would be like earth-shattering experiences. I mean, my favorite was the second time ever I was in London. I was waiting in a meeting room, and there was a newspaper on the desk, and I opened it up, and there was a letters section, and there was this old woman who was incredibly upset, to the point of writing a letter to the newspaper about how dare the council change the rubbish collection time to be 30 minutes earlier. Like, this was a huge complaint of the week, was that she has to get up like 10 minutes earlier to take out the trash now. And I'm like...
late stage capitalism.
I'm looking at this and I'm going, I really don't want to agree with the people that are like white privilege, but also white privilege. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's very hard to defend the idea that race has nothing to do, or like wealth has nothing to do with it, when you see people like this. It's just like, my God, do you realize what the rest of the world is like?
I actually wish, like somebody like Plato was alive today. Like after reading Plato's Republic, I wish he was alive today to comment on the various societies now, because I'm sure that would be so interesting. Like,
It would be depressing. I mean, like, it's just these countries have gotten so wealthy. It's like that they've definitely lost perspective, but almost like in an intergenerational sense. Like they cannot conceive of a world where there's no power in a building. Like that's just beyond them. It's that kind of thing which is just astonishing to me that we've actually come that far, and it's still a problem. What?
It's true, man. People take it for granted the way they have things so good here. Let me be honest with you. And it's something I run into quite frequently with people. I mean, like the train is maybe 5 minutes late and people are losing their shit. I'm like, okay, I've also got to get somewhere. But you realize the complexity that it takes to have this train. You realize that you are so fortunate that this train will not be burnt down on the way to its destination, you know?
But that's how brutalized we've been. It's like there is a train, thank God. Never like how late is it, and does it wait for too long?
Exactly.
There's a functioning train. That's a good thing. I mean, like the DA campaigned on that, a provincial rail service that works, and I'm like, my God, is the bar that low? Just running the trains.
It is.
Meanwhile, in Denver, they're decriminalizing magic mushrooms, which is awesome. It is Denver, right?
We got to talk about this?
Yes, it is, man.
Yes, you guys want to
love
join on that, Quentin?
No, come on. Well, you started it off, so what's your take?
Well, I'm just glad. I just have the comment that I'm glad that they did it. It's about damn time. I'm not, and that's not to say, hey, everybody, go fucking wild on magic mushrooms, but that's purely on libertarian principle alone. I'm like, whatever. And I think they probably have serious medical and sort of psychological benefits, which I'm not really qualified to comment on.
That's what Quentin's here for.
I'll let you go in on that.
So tell us, why are mushrooms good?
Well, man, okay, so I've just read this really interesting book by this guy called Michael Pollan. He was on Joe Rogan podcast, and this book is called How to Change Your Mind, and it's about the study of psychedelics. So I'm pretty into psychedelics. I'm not saying I use psychedelics all the time, but from time to time I have dabbled. And mushrooms are probably, I guess, my favorite of the psychedelics because, mushrooms, it feels like you're participating in an ancient shamanic ritual when you commune with the mushroom. And it really has been an ancient shamanic ritual for, thousands of years. So the science behind why they might work for things like depression is pretty complicated, but the best metaphor I've heard is in this book. It's like your brain has this default mode of functioning, right? It's called the default mode network. And it's basically your day-to-day consciousness getting around and perceiving your world and orientating yourself and so forth. And this can become, the more you use a certain neural pathway, the more recalcitrant it is. So if you think of it like a hill, that it's just snowed and they're running sleds down this hill. And the places where people run the most sleds, the snow kind of forms these pathways, right? In the snow. Yeah, the sleds form a pathway in the snow. So taking psychedelics is kind of like fresh snow on this hill.
Yeah, okay.
And it resets the default mode network of your brain. So it opens up new possibilities for other neural connections. It's kind of like a little bit of neural entropy that might shake you out of a state of being which hasn't been working for you. And that's why it's had a lot of success with depression and addiction, especially because it kind of resets those recalcitrant pathways that have been made through repeated use of a certain substance, or depression, which is kind of a repeated way of thinking and seeing the world. And the psychedelics shake that up a bit and open up new avenues for explorations. So personally, my experience of psychedelics has been that, once you've seen something on the other side, you experience it and you see it, it will change you forever. I was raised very Christian as a Catholic, and I kind of had a crisis of faith. I kind of had a crisis of faith in my older, late adolescence, early 20s. But doing psychedelics has left me with a very strong sense that something in me persists beyond my consciousness, like this, or beyond my memory of myself. Like I had this one experience where my memory of Quentin as an entity just completely disappeared. Like the ego dissolved entirely. I couldn't connect myself to a previous version of myself. I was a free floating entity, just out there. And I was like, coming back and then reconstituting who I was a little bit difficult, like for a few minutes. But having had that experience of something that is in me, but is not me, was very, very profound for my spiritual life. So yeah, that's why I like psychedelics, but not for fun, for shamanic exploration and for
which is
healing.
Not fun at all.
No, it's not fun. It's terrifying.
No, and the thing is, like on the depression thing, I mean, I was diagnosed with clinical depression at age 14, following, let's say, some traumatic changes. And so my favorite part, and this is where I started learning, like in a very real way, how people's attitudes has an impact on the world around them. My mother was incapable of accepting that she had screwed up. So after the first month of treatment, she said I no longer needed it. And I just believed her because I was 14. So this kind of went untreated for a very long time. And the thing is, just the way, like the default mode network stuff, like over the years, I've been on medication a couple of times, SSRIs and, the kind of the classics. I could see how they stopped me from thinking depressive thoughts, but they also shut down everything else in my head. And it's like I couldn't function. Like, I'm a software developer. For me to be effective, I have to hold very complicated graphs in my head at once to know like cause and effect and everything. And like those pills shut me down, so I couldn't take them. But then over the years, I just started through like sheer effort and self-awareness. I started recognizing those dangerous thought patterns and deliberately changing them. So by the sounds of it, I mean, if I'd had something like, a bit of that entropy to just, completely shatter those hardwired paths, it might have actually made that a lot faster for me to recover. Because as it stands now, I am a far more conscientious person than I was 10 years ago, especially because it's been like a deliberate, focused effort to constantly assess why am I thinking what I'm thinking. I'm pretty sure the mushrooms have just sped that up, by the sounds of it.
I think it takes a lot of ego strength to do it on your own in the way that you have done, man. For me, if I could have it in an ideal world as a treatment facilitator, I would say have the mushroom experience, give the person the mushrooms, put them in a safe place that's safe and comfortable, that if they start to freak out, that they're okay, and you can pretty much calm them down very easily. And then afterwards, you kind of discuss it and you kind of see what came up during this experience, and then sort of try to carve a new way forward from there.
Because, I mean, it's all anecdotal, but I mean, I know, again, in my community, there are people who take substances, drugs of various types to improve performance. There's people in my circles who use Ritalin, use things like that because they're programmers and they have to get through like a whole bunch of complex work. And some of them with the mushrooms, like I've eventually kind of figured out that there's people that they're sort of okay with themselves and are open to new experiences and they seem to do fine. But you get these people that reckon they have a tight grip on the world, and then they take this and it shows them something so scary that it's like, they don't recognize themselves at all, and that panics them. It's probably something like that, right? Like who you are when you start has a big impact on your experience.
Definitely. Like the two main important things about the psychedelics are your set and setting. So your set is your mental state at the time that you use the drug, and your setting is basically the world around you, who you're with, where you are. That will impact your experience and what you can get out of it more than pretty much the drug itself.
Yeah.
I 100% co-sign that. Like, I mean, I've had to deal with, I've had my experiences, but my personal dislike when it comes to that is when people do it at like fucking music festivals, like Opi Kopi or something.
Fuck that.
Nothing about this kid or this girl or this guy, whatever. You give them your shrooms, or you let them take whatever drugs. And my biggest bugbear is that's not the setting to do it for the first time, as far as I'm concerned. And
definitely not.
And a lot of the people who supply them just kind of like, here you go, you're on your own type thing. And that drives me insane.
Yeah, it's the difference between responsible and recreational application of anything, not just drugs. Anything can be equally dangerous.
Totally, man. Yeah, totally. I was going to make that point as well. It's very irresponsible, but not necessarily dangerous. because unless you fucking run into a bear and you think it's a teddy bear and it rips your face off, I mean, the worst can happen is you could puke, and unless you have some predisposition to psychosis and you lose your mind, but you would know that if you know your family history. Yeah, I mean, it's a very safe substance, but it should be used in a controlled environment.
Yeah.
I don't like this whole, why would you go to a music festival and get high on mushroom? I've seen live bands play, which has been one of the greatest things that I've experienced since I've been here, is to see like Nine Inch Nails, Mastodon, a couple of bands that I really love.
Yep.
And that in itself is a psychedelic experience. You don't need to enhance that or anything with another kind of substance, you know. It's amazing.
And this is the crazy thing. Like, so again, I'm not an expert in this, but I'm a very enthusiastic amateur, because my whole, you know, it was part of the process I went to understand myself and fix myself. I gained an appreciation for complex systems. And so I look at systems, and, you know, a lot of the times, you know, you get this unanticipated emergent behavior. Like, you think it goes one way, it goes another way. So that's incidentally why I think evolution is real, which is besides the point. But one of the things, like, the way that the, you know, common people talk about psychedelics is that you either have two states. You're either okay or you're high, and you're high or you're not. And it's like you can get high through a psychedelic and then you're high. But the more I learned about the way brains and bodies work, it's actually all down to like the chemical balance in your head. Your nutrition can affect it, your sleep, the lights, the sounds, the pressure in the
psychology
room. It's like all that stuff.
And
so, yeah, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure that if you took the average Christian worshiper and the average metal, you know, kind of concert attending person, they would both describe similar transcendent experiences, because they both underwent similar chemical changes participating in whatever they were doing, none of it involving foreign substances. Because our brains aren't actually as logical as we'd like to think. A lot of it is really open to context, and just sort of, you know, what you ate that day could have an impact. You know, so to think of us as being like stable or high is, I think, false.
Yeah.
Completely.
Well, it boils down to the fact that these the receptors for these substances exist in your brain, and they act on existing neurotransmitters that you already have. So you can alter your neurological or your neurochemical state rather via several different methods. Psychedelics is just one of them. I'll tell you a super interesting thing, actually. So you guys know the Khoisan paintings, right? And if you ever check out Khoisan art, you will notice that they have these animal-human hybrids depicted quite frequently in their art. And one of the main anthropologists who's kind of written about this is this guy from Wits called David Lewis Williams. And they say that a lot of these paintings are being done either in a psychedelic state or depicting a psychedelic state. So there aren't that many, there are a few, but there aren't that many native psychedelic substances in South Africa. But what the Khoisan would do to get them into the state would do these like rhythmic dances, like dance around the fire, drum a lot, and get into this kind of trance. And in the trance, they would experience themselves as kind of like a spirit animal. So you find lots of people with horns and stuff like that, and they depict that in these paintings. So this theory, if you extrapolate it out, they do say that the psychedelic experience has something to do with the evolution of consciousness. Like, we were modern humans for about 200,000 years, but only when we started to have psychedelic experiences did we start to depict ourself in art and adorn our bodies and then go through like rituals of burying the dead, because we peeked behind the veil into the something on the other side. And this is like super interesting stuff. Graham Hancock has written a book about it, but the one of the main guys was a South African dude, David Lewis Williams, or he might have been American in South Africa, but nevertheless from Wits. So yeah, cool shit.
No, that is pretty cool. It's like, again, I would probably like to read that, because like recently one of the things I've sort of been interested in is the rate of information and how that impacts on our sense of self and our sense of community. It's a very complex way of saying I hate Facebook.
Yeah.
But specific, like, just it's a very sophisticated way.
I only have it because other people have it, like to message people and.
I know
I don't have it. I had it for 2 months when it became big, and then I realized, oh, this is gonna fucking kill my social life, and then I destroyed it.
Good on you. But the thing is that We are not evolved to deal with the quantity of information that we receive. We are not equipped to make
Totally
decisions.
agree.
We cannot parse it. We can barely get information through our internal biases before there's new information. So I'm looking at all this, and part of that was I tried to figure out why it was that you've got people that seem to have a very good grip on the world around them and other people who keep just falling for the fake news. And I'm starting to think that there's a gradient of consciousness, that it's not an on-off switch, that it's a very narrow range in people, but I'm pretty sure that there are people who never seem to think beyond themselves and their immediate sort of surroundings and ego and priorities.
Yeah.
And then the people who think like, next 100 years long term, sort of like, Nikola Tesla style, in the future we'll have X. They seem to have a better facility to process large amounts of potentially conflicting information. And it does make me again think that, it's the whole thing about consciousness being at the end of this long evolutionary path kind of jives exactly with what you said about like, there's this thing about tapping into something more primal when you let go of this kind of ego that you have now. There's something else inside you, that's much more ancient than, what we currently experience as reality. So anyway, that's just sort of in the back
And
of my mind.
transcendent, I would say, as well.
Yeah.
And that's why it has such an indelible effect on us as a species. I mean, our way of trying to understand the transcendent through mythology and religion is really super important. And I mean, yes, I was an edgy young atheist, but at the same time, the older I've gotten, the more I realize that, fuck, I've actually been a bit wrong, because it's not about what we believe. It's actually about how we try to explain our nature. And so the search continues on my part.
I have a theoretical setup for you guys, theoretical question, since we're on the consciousness train now.
Do it.
Shout out to Conscious Caracal.
Completely unrelated point.
What a guy.
We appreciate you and your memes, Conscious. Thank you so much.
So I was in a class. I can't remember what class it is, but it was a comp-sci class, computer science class, and the lecturer basically asked. It's a two-parter. The lecturer basically asked me, "What would you do if, in a situation, you have a true artificial general intelligence, and that artificial general intelligence is based on you, your brain, your thoughts, your memories, your thing, and it argues to you, no, I'm just as real as you are. You just happen to be made of flesh and bone, but we're both the real you." Like, what argument would you present to that machine?
I just pull the plug. Like, I don't, next. Because they're creepy as fuck.
Thank you for Occam's razor solution. That's Alexander the Great cutting the Gordian knot.
Just like, you're getting too stroppy. Disconnect. Just done.
It's an interesting thing, because now this true AGI is arguing to me that it's more me than I'm me, and I sometimes struggle to find a watertight explanation to it as to how I'm the real me, because every night my consciousness stops. When I go to sleep, I have no real way of telling me that wakes up is the same me that went to bed. So
I have an argument. I actually do. Well, it's a very complicated one. I'll try and get through
Blowing
it.
my mind.
All right. So first off, there is no.
It's a tech topic, at least, guys.
So there is no you, and this is like worthy of like hours of discussion. But the consciousness that you experience as yourself is not fixed. As you move through life, it changes, adapts. You learn, you grow, you drop things, you gain things. But the process of that growth is chaotic, right? You can't predict what's going to happen to you. You can't predict how you're going to respond. You could get bitten. What's that Toxoplasma gondii parasite that just changes your brain chemistry?
Yeah.
Random things can happen which shape who you are. But if you virtualize your brain into a computer, everything inside of a circuit is deterministic. It can only ever grow along the lines of deterministic algorithms. So it cannot have the same random experiences that would shape you as a person. And so my assertion would be, you're an excellent simulation, but you do not have the capacity for growth that I do, being an organic being in the real world. That would be my thesis.
Okay, good answer. Actually.
Wow, man. Yeah, I like that. Actually, I really do think that. And if you want to take it to another level of cybernetic, it's a closed system, whereas you exist as a human being in open systems, and information is always flowing. And that machine can only get the information that we give it from the environment. So we don't know it. I mean, we are actually neurologically plastic. our environment literally shapes our brain.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could say that so far about a machine, we could.
Yeah, we couldn't, because all you can say about a machine, all machines are binary. They work or they don't. And sometimes they don't work, and that creates interesting emergent behaviors, but that's not the same as, the mutations that we experience in the real world. And sure, you could go and plug this machine into a network with other brains, give it a virtual environment, give it sensors, give it everything. But because it's physically constructed from material which cannot do what our brains can do, it can never evolve like our brains can. To me, it's that simple.
I would tack onto that from
It's
a
very
more
Occam's
sort of spiritual and sort of theistic point is I would wonder, but then does the presence of a soul not matter? Because that would be a differentiating factor to me. It's very Sunday school and simple, but I think that that thing beyond that, as you said, it's beyond the presence of a soul matters, and that's a differentiating factor for me.
And that's actually a good question, Quentin. Is there any literature that you know about where are we on the soul in human bodies and brains? Because I don't know. What's?
Yeah, I also, I don't really know. I haven't gone that far. The only book I've read on AI is this book, Super Intelligence, and that was pretty cool, but very scary. Rostrom, yeah.
Yeah, I quoted him a lot in my dissertation.
Oh yeah?
That's
a great book, man.
You guys can school me then, because I haven't read it. I've heard about it, and people have told me to read it, and I swear to God it's on my list, but I haven't read it. What's the main thesis of superintelligence? Are we all screwed?
You're actually probably more well equipped to answer that one than I am.
Do it. Let's hear it.
I would say that, there are different paths to superintelligence, but the human-computer hybrid doesn't seem likely to me. But you would know more.
It doesn't. It depends on the question. Are you saying what's the best way we can go forward with now that the genie's out of the bottle type thing? Is that the question there?
Well, actually, maybe there's a compound question. Will AGI happen, and is it going to wreck everything? Is World War III Skynet? Because this is something that I think about every now and then. Where are we actually going with this?
Yeah, well, Nick's position is that it's definitely going to happen, and we need to really look at who develops it first. And I tend to agree with him. I think to sort of distill it all down, the most important thing is we need to realize some kid somewhere is going to release some sort of AI at some point. It's going to happen, and I think the most important thing is to have good AIs out there to counter bad AIs, to simplify it, and the other most important thing is to work with a field. I don't think it was in Superintelligence, it was in one of his journals, is to seriously look at the field of machine ethics, which is basically to teach our AIs to be more ethical, as it were, which sounds like an insurmountable effort, because
it is.
smarter than you to be more ethical than you. But the main thesis of that, him and a couple of other people boil it down to, is not to impress our model of ethics on the machine, but to help it understand the structure of ethical dilemmas. Because the reason you want it to understand the structure rather than to have the highest version of our ethics is because ethics kind of changes over time. If, let's say, Archimedes or somebody created an AI, an AGI in their time, you think these are learned men, but you forget that in their time, women were literally, much to SJW's delight, literally not people. And man-boy love was all that shit. So if you were to impress that on something smarter than us, we'd be in big trouble. That's why the key that him and a bunch of other people argue is to teach it to understand the structure of an ethical problem, a sort of ethical Turing test, if you would.
It's an interesting opinion, and I would immediately disagree with it on the basis that humans can't agree on what ethics is, neither right now or at any other point in history. So whatever you teach the machine is going to come out to something wrong. From your point of view, it'll look wrong. So I don't know how you do that. But okay.
The scary thing that I took from that whole in superintelligence as well, he's like, so let's say we build an AI with our values, and we say, well, the highest human value is to be what? Is to be happy.
Yeah.
And we impress upon the AI this value of just do something that'll make everyone happy. And the AI realizes, well, the quickest way to do this is through nanobots implanted in the happiness center of the person's brain. And they just stimulate that center of your brain. So you die starving in a pool of your own blood, happy.
Done. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it could go super wrong.
And the crazy thing is, and this is the, you know, I'm sort of leaning towards the opinion that AI will exist and it will eventually kill us because we'll kill each other over it. The people who build it think of themselves as smart and they think of their peers as smart, but I don't think that any amount of human brains has the collective capacity to understand the impact of what it's creating in a dynamic environment like the world we live in and be able to predict what it's going to do. I don't think any of us are capable of that in any quantity. So for us to be like, you know, we'll make the machine as smart as us is the worst possible approach because we are not smart. We are rationalizing creatures who are led by our emotions, who will justify things, who will bring our egos up in the way. Like literally this happened to me again this morning. I spent 3 hours fixing a problem that boiled down to 2 lines of code, but the amount of fire that was thrown at both sides because everyone's egos got involved, I'm like, you scale that up to AGI, we're screwed. So no. For what it's worth, I don't think we'll ever achieve AGI that looks like we understand intelligence. Because I don't think that what we are is necessarily intelligent. I think we have cognition capabilities, but we cloud it with a hell of a lot of other stuff. Ego, emotion, pride, you know, all these other things that get in the way of pure rational thought. And because of that...
I don't have any pride left. I'm a professional software engineer. I have no pride.
Done. You see, you'd be perfect to build it.
Yeah.
But I just think that we might build very clever machines to do very sophisticated tasks, but we're never going to build a machine that'll be as smart as a person, because I don't think you can codify that, because any person alive, their level of intelligence changes over time. They get smarter, they learn new things. I don't know how you ever would virtualize that. But you'll
build a machine half as smart as a human and tell it to build an even smarter machine and an even smarter... No, seriously, that is actually a school of thought on AI, that we're not going to build the super intelligence. We're going to build a generation or two below it, and that one is going to build up to...
But what it'll end up with is something that is an extremely efficient computer, but will not have our same sense of intelligence. Because we also, and I haven't brought this topic up in several episodes, and I'm so glad I can do it, sex bots. The sex bots are coming, guys. And
yes!
And we're
5 minutes, sex bots, discuss it.
Let's do it. We're already at the point where people are capable of forming real emotional connections to inanimate objects. We've had that for a while. It's now getting to the point where these simulations are realistic enough that there's some fringe groups who are starting to think about the rights of these tools, robot rights. That's a thing. That's how irrational we are as a civilization. But also we're more likely to die out because of the sex bots, I think. Quentin, what is your take on sex bots? I think everyone has a take.
As long as they're not programmed with third wave feminism, I think we're pretty much okay.
No. Dude, we're fine. I can put you at ease. The third wave feminists reckon that sex bots are robbing women of their agency by giving men another option, which is amazing. It's an amazing line of thought, but also it's what they argue. So I think we'll be fine.
The mental gymnastics there is incredible.
Yeah, I don't know. It is really something. I mean, once you get into that whole uncanny valley thing, and does love really matter if you're loved back by something? Because you still have, you behave as if you love that object. And that's in a way indistinguishable from actually loving the object. And this is actually super interesting, because when you do couples therapy with people, you kind of, a lot of couples get into a phase in their relationship where things become quite mundane. And this is a very existential problem. And Sartre has this idea that to be is to do and to do is to be. So what I work with people towards to say, hang on, why not behave as if you love your partner? Like, what did you do in those early days when you were just, that person was like everything to you and your whole world, and you really had that crazy amour fou that you couldn't be without them. You were so obsessed with them. You do different things than you do 10 years into a relationship. And the act of going back to doing what you did when you fell in love, can help people to fall in love again. So if you do what you would do with someone that you're in love with a sex robot, you could fall in love with that robot regardless of whether it loves you back.
So, hi, I come from the internet, and let me tell you, in that a lot of my formative experiences took place in online first communities, where I can tell you for absolutely fucking sure, people are able to form emotional connections in the complete absence of another human being, over instant messaging, over voice chat, over video chat. We're at the point where, like, it's the way you feel about someone is entirely internal to you. It's almost irrelevant how they feel about you, which is why we have absolutely insane fans of huge celebrities that get so worked up about them. And it's why we form emotional attachments to TV and movie characters. That's in us already. So for like a programmable sex bot who can say the right things in the right tone of voice in response to the right stimuli, yes, that is the real thing. And the thing is, that's been in us all along. It's not a new thing that technology has brought out. We've always been able to form these attachments because, from my point of view, it's always how you respond to the thing that matters. And even like with you do what you are. Yeah.
What is it's like the Greek tale of what's his name? It's the guy we get the word narcissist from.
His name was Narcissus, wasn't it?
Was it Narcissus? Yeah, he fell in love with his own reflection. He only it's sort of like what was happening to him was irrelevant. It's about how he felt about an object, and that object was himself in that instance, and so he.
And this is it's a very human thing. So what was the other thing I was just going to say? There was one more thing I forgot now. Sorry, you derailed me there. It's fine. It'll come back.
My bad.
My memory ain't what it used to be.
I want to take a moment to shout out to Belleville Pete, and also let's take.
Hey Pete.
Let's take. Yeah, he's a super fan. Let's take a guess, maybe, just to derail this more. 2020 elections for the United States.
Oh, we've got to do our election check-in. Yes. Okay. What's the field? Bring us up to speed.
Okay. Well, as I said, literally everyone except like one registered Democrat in Seattle is running for the Democratic candidate. Like there's like 20 candidates. 20 candidates. Okay. And I will say what I said with our stream with Roman, what I've been saying before. Two things at play here. One, there are only two people that I can seriously see winning against Donald Trump on the Democrat ticket. They are Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang. Done. I don't care. Uncle Joe Biden, creepy Uncle Joe, only has a chance if Obama endorses him. And Obama hasn't endorsed him, so you're dead in the water. Bernie has the same politics as AOC, except she's quote-unquote hot, which, I mean, she's pretty, but Gabbard can get it
Tulsi,
any day of the week.
all day, every day.
Are you adjusting for American beauty standards, though? Are you just normalizing for that? Okay. Okay.
So there's only two, and they will be stabbed in the back by their own party. Right now, it's already begun. Kamala Harris has gone in, and Cory Booker have gone in on Joe Biden. Joe Biden's going to go in on someone else. Pete Buttigieg, whatever his name is going in on Mike Pence. He's going in on Joe Biden. So they've already started their night of the long knives on each other, taking each other out. That's the one factor. The other factor at play is that 9 times out of 10, the Americans do not change horses mid-race. They go Democrat, Democrat, Republican, Republican. Like there's very few one-term presidents. If they either don't run again or they, have this nasty habit of getting assassinated. So
totally their fault though. They had it coming, man. They should have ducked.
Yeah. So, how dare you free the slaves, Abraham Lincoln?
Yeah, huge screw up on your part. Lots of people unhappy about these things.
So I would say there's only two people who can beat Donald Trump on the Democrat ticket, and they haven't been buried yet, but they will be buried by their own party. Gabbard, because she's a military vet, she can get some of the sort of right of center people in places like Wisconsin and Michigan that Trump needs to win to get reelected, and Yang, because he's really quite an intelligent guy. He's the only Democrat I actually saw go on the Ben Shapiro show and have a proper discussion with him. Mm-hmm. And he's going to get buried as well. and then because he doesn't play identity politics, and because he's popular on 4chan because of his universal basic income, and then Trump, all he has to do at this point, as I said, is just hold the wheel. Like as an incumbent, that's all you have to do at this point.
Yeah.
And
That's my take.
and it's like it's a very rational take, because after seeing what the Democrats did to Bernie Sanders, who was like their best choice, actually. I mean, I don't agree with any of his policies, but just politically, he was the better choice than Hillary Clinton. And look at what they did there. They're
for sure.
going to do it again. Like, they're absolutely going to do it again.
Yeah.
You're probably right. I think we're probably in for 4 more years of the meme lord himself, Donald J. Trump.
I'm glad that I'm alive during this time, that I can see.
Me too.
Like that experience when the guy from The Apprentice, the guy that was on WWE wrestling, is now president of the United States. I'm genuinely happy about that.
Donald Trump did a cameo on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yes, and in Home Alone.
Home Alone, yeah, Home Alone.
As I've said this before, guys, we bought the circus, we might as well laugh.
Yeah, we got the front row seat to the freak show, man.
But then it's like, I mean, like on the one hand, okay, there's everything Trump, and then on the other hand, I saw like stats now. I mean, unemployment is down, and the number of discouraged job seekers, they don't track that, but you know, it is a factor, has also gone down. Apparently, people are now finding jobs that weren't looking before, and I don't know if it's true or not, because it came from Ivanka Trump's Twitter account, and everything is a grain of salt. But I'm looking at this and going, all he has to do is hold the wheel. You're right. I'm pretty sure he'll probably get more support. I mean, I think it's now at the highest point it's been in his presidency. Gallup's polling has him at like 48% approval, which is the highest it's ever been for him. So it's going to keep increasing until like the election, and then that's it, you know? My God. Yeah. The world makes no sense. Quentin, save us.
Yeah, I don't know what to say other than that if he does start building the wall, he'll be unstoppable for the 2020 election.
I think he's going to build the wall in his second term. I never believed him. I never believed he was going to build the wall in his first term. He was going to build the wall in his second term. I never believed it was going to be a term project.
We're setting up the stage for like the movie Pacific Rim with giant walls, and because also like the you know, after all the radiation that Fukushima dumped off the coast of Japan, Godzilla is inevitable now. There's going to be some large mutated fish crawling out of the water in like 50 years. Guys, we're going for Pacific Rim. That's our future. Huge robots smashing huge monsters. All right, I think we're pretty much at the end of our time. Quentin, thank you so much for coming on. It was a real pleasure to chat to you.
Guys, thanks for the invite. It was wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll not be discouraged from appearing here again, because I think we've...
I will appear anytime you guys want me on. Seriously.
Awesome. So we'll slowly gear up for like our own version of, you know, like Daily Maverick has that like conference where they get all the important people. We'll just get all our friends and we'll have a conference. We'll be like,
exactly.
Done. That's it. The No Script Show conference. All right. So we're going to be back next week. You can find us at noscriptshow.com.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.